stealing our stuff and rebranding it. Like turmeric latte. It's cool not to have purpose. It's like cool not to work hard. It's cool to have like no discipline. I was in Hong Kong a couple of weeks ago and I went into a local supermarket, which was a French supermarket. And I was just looking at the shelves and they were selling ghee for 120 Hong Kong dollars. Somehow other people are productizing our culture. I believed in this very fair world that everybody wins on hard work. I think there's a lot of people winning for a lot of reasons unrelated to hard work. We are facing everything from sexual harassment to being told that we should file male founders, which I've been told to my face. Female-founded companies deliver 2.5x more shareholder value. In India, it's less than 1%. I actually think it's the women of India keeping local retail alive. I can only imagine how great India would be if we release the unrealized potential of our women.
Akanksha, thank you so much for coming to my show. I really appreciate.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And I was going through your profile. Of course, it's a very impressive profile. That's somebody who is, from Pune, moved to Hong Kong, done Princeton, done Cambridge, done politics. And you've done, and a squash player at a global, the junior global level. So you've done, you are an achiever, as a, and we were just having this conversation about how women and more women power is not seen. Like you were telling me about how Iran has more educated women, more in STEM, unlike US. So but I'm going to go back to you because my thing is all about leadership and mindset. From where you were achieving and you were, doing all these projects, you were in Gaza, Palestine, you've seen all of that in your work time. What was happening? Were you really wanting to do your own entrepreneurial back then also? So where did this germ of doing your own start?
I think I've probably been like a little bit of a black sheep in the traditional sense, but I also think that I was very fortunate to have parents that treated me equally, both my mother and my father. I didn't grow up in a household, like I have a younger brother, but the expectations and the framework placed on me was no different based on my gender. And I think that probably unleashed in me something that was very natural to me, that I actually think that probably most women in India, if gender was taken out of the equation and if they were treated the same at home and given the same opportunities and given the same education and given the same support, I think you'd see a lot more women like me, to be honest. So I don't think I'm so exceptional in the fact that I wanted to be a leader or ended up being an achiever, so to speak. I think I probably had it in me, but at least in my house, I was in a system that allowed it to be in the open and allowed it to flourish. But I hope that in the future, I'm the rule, not the exception, because
no, absolutely.
I think India and women all over the world, but obviously I feel very passionately about India being Indian. I can only imagine how great India would be if we release the unrealized potential of our women.
Well, I'm absolutely with you on this, and that's the reason why I started the podcast, because for me to see women and in the boardrooms where I come from in my career, because they're again less than 1%. So how do we give them knowledge? How do we empower them? How do we change this societal, also the belief that the women themselves are now carrying or conditioned? But coming back to, because whilst you were doing your college and you were doing all these things, where did that germ that I'm done? Because see, I meet many people, right, including me. I want to do my own. But the courage to leave everything and put that all aside. Like, where does that mindset, where did that thing come?
So I think from a young age, I knew I wanted to make a difference, and it was very childlike, to be honest. I didn't know how to articulate it. And when I was younger, I didn't know that I would be an entrepreneur, or that's what it's called today. Right. I just knew I wanted to solve problems that I cared about. And ultimately, I wanted my life to be defined by some sort of positive impact in the world. And in the most childish sense, to be honest, if you notice, like at Princeton, I went in as pre-med, but I switched to pre-law.
Correct.
Honestly, thinking initially that the best way to have that type of impact would be through the policy world, through politics, through potentially running for office, through potentially working in the social and the nonprofit space. So when I graduated from Princeton, actually that's the space I went into. When I moved to Washington, I worked at a think tank. I ended up starting a think tank with young people, with a few friends. But to be honest, being in the policy and politics world, unfortunately, really jaded me, because I realized irrespective of where you are in the world, it's not a world where actually the most impact is happening.
Exactly, correct.
You know, it's very self-interested.
Very self-interested.
And it's very opaque because there are no numbers around it, unlike business. And I think the most important thing is I actually saw that, hey, this is not about social impact. This is not about changing people's lives. There's a lot of other things at work here that
it's
I
still
don't...
a business, make money making.
Exactly. And so I was like, well, if I look at business, it seems like if you build a business that the problem also has an impact and there's a business opportunity, I can kind of kill two birds with one stone. And when I was 20, when I was in DC, I actually ended up building this think tank, which was my first introduction to like building a company or building a startup. We built the first policy think tank in the world for young people. So if you're familiar with the Aspen Institute or the Council on Foreign Relations, when we went to DC, we saw there was nothing for young people. And we met like, 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds. And we thought that was a bit odd because these institutions are supposed to train future leaders. And we said, well, why are you training them when they're 40 or 45? Shouldn't training start when they're
younger,
in their 20s? So why aren't they allowed to at least listen to the conversation, if not be a part of the conversation? The second is young people have valid points of view because things are moving so quickly. If you look at political leadership across the world today, it is much older. And so we're like, well, how do we make young people part of the conversation? And the third, which maybe was a little, naive, big eyes, starry eyed, was if we could make all young people friends from across the world, and Washington has people from across the world, if we can make them friends before they entered positions of power, then maybe they were more likely to have dialogue than go to war in the future when they are in a position of power. So that was the kind of vision behind it.
Well, very nice. You were coming from a purpose, creating a better world as a...
That was the intent. Yeah. But actually YPFP is still around today. So I left or exited 5 years into it. Today YPF has been around for more than 15 years. When I had left, we had scaled it to 3 countries. Today it's in 15 countries.
Oh, lovely.
And so that was my taste of like, hey, you can build something around a problem you care about. If you do it well, it outlasts you.
Correct. That's a legacy you leave.
And, it can continue solving this problem. And so once we built that, I was like, I like this. And I didn't know the word of entrepreneurship and all this stuff, but I was like, I want to do this. And so I left kind of the policy world and went into just consulting for a couple of years to train myself in business. And at that point, I got it in my head that whatever I do after YPFP, I wanted to build from India. And I didn't know when the moment was right, but I was like, whenever the moment is right, after I've trained myself, went to Cambridge to do my master's, I was like, I'm going to come to India and build something that both has a massive impact and is a great business opportunity. And that's where I ended up with LoveLocal.
Why was the reason? Because today a lot of people who go, they don't want to come back given the infrastructure.
No, honestly, opportunity. Like people went to pursue the American dream many years ago.
Yes.
I don't think that actually is true anymore. I think the American dream is very much on the decline.
Absolutely.
And I think I saw the beginning of the Indian dream. And I think the beginning of the Indian dream is when you see the foundation is starting to be built, or at least there's a foundation that's built that you can build upon, which didn't exist for my parents' generation, right? Like my parents' generation is from the generation of immigrants who went overseas because it wasn't possible to build, and India wasn't even liberalized then.
No, it wasn't. Yeah.
But by the time it came to my generation, I was like, okay, we one obviously had liberalized, but two, technology was coming in. There just seemed to be like a takeoff point that was happening. And so I was like, it's far more interesting and exciting to be a part of building the India story.
Yeah, that's true. Early 2000 and India had started building the narrative.
And I came back around 2015, right? So I'm 15 years into it. Keep in mind, Flipkart started in 2002.
Yeah.
Right? The real original Flipkart. And I went through a few iterations at the beginning, but 2002 we're talking about. So I still was like coming on the back of earlier entrepreneurs who had started to
Absolutely.
put those
First
pieces
generation
together.
was there. Yes,
you
yes,
know?
of course.
So yeah, I came for the Indian dream. And I think the Indian dream and the Asian dream is where the future is now.
Absolutely. I agree with you, that I'm so good you spotted that opportunity. Now coming to, but how did the whole grocery and the fresh came into your life in the thinking? Because now you're solving a business problem and purpose is different from this problem that you solved. So where did this piece come into your thinking?
So I moved to Mumbai. I think Mumbai is like one of the best cities in the world, to be honest. Love Mumbai. So I moved to Mumbai and worked here for a year. And I was very lucky that I got put on a project that was around agriculture and technology.
Okay.
And basically I was given the opportunity to travel across India to many, many farms and villages from Karnataka to Arunachal. So I got to see most of India, which was beautiful.
Agri life.
Yeah. And as part of that, the mandate for this client was, how can technology change farmer income or increase farmer productivity? But one of the things, obviously, through my travels was like everyone else, you interact with local stores, with kiranas, wherever you go. This was the beginning of the technology wave in India. So I was thinking, what a great opportunity to digitize local retail. This has been done in China with Alibaba. You've seen this with Shopify overseas.
Yes.
Someone is going to have to do this. And two, what a great impact, because in India, local stores are responsible for 40% of jobs in the country, directly or indirectly. And if you look at most successful economies, a truly successful economy has a very strong middle class.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's the growing
exactly.
middle class that we also have. Yeah.
In most places, like if you look at the US today, the problem is you have very rich and you have very poor.
Yeah.
In fact, the middle class is broken. There are very few economies, actually, I would say, that have achieved having a strong middle class with some rich and some less well off, but middle class being the bulk of the population. And to have that be true, you need to have small businesses be very successful, because that's where middle class families typically are able to build their wealth and maintain their wealth, because there are only so many jobs, right?
I agree.
So I was like, okay, great. This aligns with me from a mission perspective. I feel like doing this is important to the India growth story.
And this you see more in Asia, because in Europe you have more, first of all, the whole modern retail is very structured. It is all, and it's so fragmented.
Yeah.
The way it's fragmented in India, having your kirana stores versus your modern retail versus the in-between ones.
Exactly.
So yeah, there is a whole fragmentation already. So
and so that's why I thought this was a huge business opportunity, like over $1 trillion of retail happens through local stores, completely undigitized. 80% it is food and grocery. On the other side, huge impact, part of the India growth story. India's starting to develop.
So you saw this opportunity, and you also, the other thing I wanted to dwell upon is, and we were talking about technology.
Yeah.
So you came from the policy world, and then you solved a problem through technology. Where did that pivot happen? Were you already dealing in technology, or
no? No, it was my first foray into the tech world. I think that's the beauty of tech, at least today's tech, software in particular, is that you can be self-taught. And I think that's only accelerating with the advent of AI.
Yes.
I think all of us have to be technologists at some level now. I don't think that's an option anymore.
Absolutely.
And the second is that I see technology as an enabler. So any business today has to use technology. And so it wasn't that, hey, I'm building a tech company, but it was like, hey, we can use tech to solve this problem. And so that's how I ended up in the tech space. And now by default, we're all in the tech space.
Because you created a platform. So initially then, because it's a great idea that, okay, you're solving a kirana's problem, you are solving consumer on one side, your grocery goes fresh, and like you said, you are a chief freshness officer. So interesting designation coin. But then to really create a technology platform, one is to have it on your design board and to really make it happen. Because what I really like on your business model is that you are holding nothing. Warehouse is not yours. The merchandise is not yours, because there's a kirana. So it's a whole supply chain problem, that you've solved. So it's an interesting idea, but then really to get from the design to execution is now end-to-end a technology platform and an app.
Yeah.
So how did you go about doing that?
So I'll give you an interesting stat, which seems unrelated, but it's very related. 94% of CXOs globally who are women have been high performance athletes in their past.
Wow, really?
Yes. And this is a very well-known statistic. There have been Harvard studies on it. That's why you should put your girls in sports.
Oh, I agree.
Because
wow.
sports actually builds a tremendous amount of confidence. Now, that relates to me because I was a professional athlete from about 7 till 18. And I will say one thing about being an athlete. You have to be particularly ambitious, deluded, and hardworking to believe that you can be the best at the world at something.
Yeah, of course.
You know, by 15 years old, I was 12th in the world. So I was 11 spots from number 1. But it takes a certain level of like, 1, hey, I believe I can work hard and do this. And 2, then actually try and do it.
Absolutely.
And I think
the diligence and the discipline, the rigor.
But that's but the begins from the belief.
Yeah.
Right? And then the willingness to put in the work.
True.
And I think that beginning is what goes into then me doing many things that I think seem very like, how in the world did you decide to do that? But I think even like a founder has to have like tremendous amount of belief and then be willing to back it with work. And I think that's where probably that originates. But yeah, it's a very well-known fact. 94% of CXOs, female CXOs and founders were high-performance athletes when they were young.
High-performance athletes. So that's where your whole sports discipline has got you to really give yourself out there in everything that you do, right? So I had sponsored Olympics last year as a brand.
Amazing.
And so I had been to Paris. But
Indian... That must have been an amazing experience.
It was outstanding. I would tell everybody that once in your lifetime, you must. You must, because I think India is cricket. It's not sporting as a culture.
Yeah.
And so we had our boxer and, our wrestler, and because I was creating my campaign with them. So I was there at, the Panipat, and I was at our Olympic, where is it? Haryana, somewhere in Haryana. Yeah. So I was there. And seeing all of that really, it really humbles you because we don't have one of the best infrastructures over there. So it's very humbling, and the belief, that's why. That I can do. They really come from a very small background, and it's not, cricketing has a lot of structure today. BCCI,
and a lot of money.
A lot of money. So BCCI is a rich body. They are investing. It's not the same. And that time the wrestling club was going through their issues. So yes, you're right, because the belief that they had, and that's really an interesting take. And from there also, you said that you have to show up. I wanted you to talk more on that, for my audience to listen, that what does it mean to show up every day, whether you're falling apart, because I do believe in that thing myself.
So I think if you follow running, Kipchoge has like a great quote that I love. He framed it so well. I think a lot of people see discipline as handcuffs, but discipline is actually freedom. Because I think discipline is freedom in the sense that it means that you have complete control over yourself. Imagine not being able to get yourself to do something.
Yes.
Imagine not being able to have a schedule. Imagine not being able to push yourself. Isn't that more restricting and more chaotic than being someone who has the freedom of discipline, which means that, hey, if I need to do something, I'm able to get myself to do that thing. And in some days I may enjoy it, and some days I may not. But I think there's incredible freedom and discipline. And maybe
I just love the line, the freedom and discipline, because you're right. Usually discipline comes routine, it's structured, it's
got bad marketing. Discipline is freedom. Honestly.
I need to very nice. I like the headline, discipline is freedom. Very nice.
And I think like I have gray hairs now, so maybe I'm starting to get to that generation. But I feel like some of these things that are incredible positives have been turned into incredible negatives in the younger generation.
Yes.
Like it's cool not to have purpose. It's like cool not to work hard. It's cool to have like no discipline and
rebel against anything which is disciplined.
Or structured or long-term goals.
Yes.
But I also see then that honestly that generation is consequently suffering a lot from the consequences of that lack of purpose. Purpose gives you a lot of joy. It also anchors you a huge amount, right? Yes. It actually helps you from a mental health point of view massively. So does discipline, the ability to manage your mind, control your mind, do what's needed so that you can be successful in the future, to have a honest view about success, like not be bought into the completely misleading Instagram overnight success nonsense, right?
The reels that.
And I think it's really impacting them because they're being sold a lie.
True.
It's a lie that you cannot work hard and be successful. It's a lie that you can have overnight success. And it's a lie that you can feel grounded and happy without purpose.
Yeah, because you don't have your compass. You don't
It's
have
like an
anything
unanchored ship.
It's an unanchored ship, yes.
You're just like at the mercy of the waves, at the mercy of the tides. You have no control over where this sails.
Yes.
You know, and
it's directionless.
Exactly, and then you're lost.
Correct.
Right? So I think it's a very long answer to your question, but I think I find a lot of motivation, and I know it sounds crazy, but I love discipline. I love routine. I love almost as much as is possible the control of input over output. It makes me feel at least like I have some control over my destiny.
Nice.
And I love having the anchor of purpose and the vision of a long-term goal that creates that purpose. And I think it actually makes me a happier, more content, and like more fulfilled person. So I'm really grateful for it. And it allows me to have a very half glass full point of view of the world. And, you know, ultimately, even when things are really tough, be quite optimistic, because when everything's really tough, I know I will still be able to wake up in the morning, do what I need to do, have that routine and not feel lost. And sometimes when things are really bad, the routine and the discipline will keep you sane.
Keep you sane and grounded.
Until, you know, the tide starts to lift again. And I think it's given me so much. And so that's, I think, why I end up doing this.
But I really am currently actually really thinking and, you know, digesting, because it's a very different view, Akanksha. So I meet so many people, but you're right, because today the younger generations, and this is reason why I started, they're lost. Finally, because you're saying discipline, anchoring on purpose. So it just keeps you going. It keeps you moving forward vis-a-vis sitting. Because today when people lose jobs over there, then they don't know how to move, what next. So absolutely, I think it's very impressive that I'm glad you brought this out. But with this mindset, so now I can understand. So with this mindset, because you started LoveLocal when, I mean, you didn't know that, I don't know whether you knew that COVID is coming in your planning. So what happened at that time?
No, we started in Jan of 2020 and like 12 weeks later, COVID happened.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was very confusing for everybody, right? So I think initially for all of us, including me, it was like, just keep showing up for work and like see what happens, right? Like, let's see where this goes. And I think naively, I thought I was really conservative. I was like, maximum 6 months, you know, then.
Because we all look for positive, you know, nobody, this is absolute unknown, all of us.
No one has lived through a pandemic before. So I was like, 6 months, like just buckle down for 6 months and like, we'll get through it. Obviously it was not 6 months. So I think two things happened in COVID at the same time for us. The entire team was 23 people. We were very small. We were just starting to build. Our type of business does need people on the ground, right? You go and talk to shops, you acquire them. Because it's a hyper-local business, you need to pick the shops in the neighborhood. We could not have teams on the ground. So suddenly it became very challenging to actually do the business or execute the business that we wanted to build. On the flip side, demand for our business suddenly skyrocketed. Suddenly all stores wanted to and needed to be online. Suddenly customers accelerated their adoption of e-commerce and quick commerce. And so we just had to be really agile and say, okay, well, how can we solve for remote onboarding of stores? We can't have people on the ground. Luckily, stores were actively downloading the app. So we said,
so they were
looking, stores were suddenly looking for online solutions. How do I go online? Because I need to sell to my customers. So suddenly stores were coming to us, great. Now we need to solve for how do we screen those stores? How do we do KYC? How do we catalog them? How do we manage their catalog and make sure they're delivering a good experience? And so it shifted our focus on what problem we're solving. But it was this weird scenario that it was hard to execute what needed to be executed, but what we were building was more important than ever. And I think it's...
So did you have to pivot from your original model? Because the original model would have been, like you said, everything on ground, bringing the customer on one side and your kiranas on the other side?
Little bit. I mean, we're still in the same business, but the way we grew was very different. Like we moved away from being hyper local and just said, hey, we'll just digitize stores. And as long as they meet our criteria that they should be in groceries. And that's how we ended up being over 2 years in 35 cities because we couldn't build hyper locally.
Okay.
And said, hey, at this point, let's help just digitize the stores. And at that time, the stores were just promoting to their customers because they needed to tell their customers that they were online.
Correct.
And then
they had to survive themselves. Because,
exactly. And then post-COVID, actually, we decided now that we can kind of not pivot, but like go back to the roots a little bit, decide to almost rebuild our business from Mumbai. So that's when we said, hey, we were supposed to be hyper-local. This business structure or model was relevant for COVID. Thankfully, COVID has ended. Let's use all the experience that we have and actually build hyper-locally from Mumbai again. And then this is when the freshness insight happened.
Okay.
Because at that point during COVID, quick commerce also took off.
Yes.
So Zepto was born, Blinkit, and this entire like era was born. And so 2022, 23, we said, okay, well, what's the problem that's also most relevant for consumers?
So at that time when you did in 2020, it was not only about fresh grocery.
No, it was all groceries.
It was all grocery.
And actually less freshness.
Okay.
It was more your grocery kirana.
Kirana.
And we had a lot of chemists as well.
Oh, okay.
And then post-COVID, obviously quick commerce was serving the grocery segment.
Yes.
That's their biggest segment, actually, packaged food.
Yeah.
And so you said, well, you know what? Consumers don't seem to be very satisfied with the quality that they're getting from quick commerce in terms of freshness.
Absolutely.
Whether it's fruits and vegetables and meats and fish. And if you look at Indian consumers, I think it's less than like 1% are shopping for freshness online.
Yes.
And those that have tried have not enjoyed the experience.
Absolutely. I am one of that. I still go to my vegetable market because I don't like. Oh, and then my cook also complains. Absolutely.
So we said, well, let's do this. Let's focus on these stores because it speaks to a consumer problem in the era of quick commerce. So let's build India's freshness app. Let's build India's freshness quick commerce platform powered by local retailers. So we can bring freshness to consumers. And at the other side, obviously continue to stay true to our mission of digitizing local retailers. And I think this also comes at an important time where I think there's a growing trend in India about attention to food quality.
Yes, more and more now.
More and more. And I think there's a...
Because the onset of cancer and all that is very high and, everything is getting filtrated. The food is getting... So, yes, there is more awareness.
And also I think there's...
On health.
On health. Like India, very honestly, especially in our cities, is going through a massive health crisis, right?
Yes.
We have huge diabetes problem. We have huge lifestyle problems. I think some statistics is in some Indian cities, there's up to like a 70% technically by clinical standards, obesity rate, right?
Yes.
We live in very harsh cities. It's hard to walk. It's hard to be mobile. People are doing their best. But I also think that was married with a time where quick happened. So suddenly you can get chips in 10 minutes at 11 p.m. And then you're starved for time. So you cook less. Right? And then you have this advertising around, hey, the future is not cooking, the future is ordering, which is not true, right? The future is cooking.
Indians, but still, we are not living in those European where you're only eating outside. We still believe in our home.
But if you look at younger people or homes have been ordering in the last few years, especially through COVID, I think, more than they've ever ordered out before.
No, absolutely. Ordering all the time is on now. It's full day ordering now.
Yeah, which is so bad for you, actually.
Yes.
So I think India's waking up now and is focusing on her health. And I think our mission also marries well to that there's a return to cooking. There's a return to freshness.
Yes.
There's a return to paying attention to food quality as well. And I feel, honestly, it's very simple, but I also feel good about selling fruits and vegetables and meats and fish, to be honest. And I feel good. Hey, I'm telling you to eat a banana. I'm not telling you to drink a Coca-Cola. So that also gives me a little bit of peace at the end of the day.
In fact, when I, in this half an hour, 1 hour, seeing your journey, wow. This woman has come from Princeton, Cambridge, exciting CV, done policies, done, and now she's excited about freshness, sports. So interesting. So, but Akanksha, I want to double tap and ask you that why didn't you feel the need to join the bandwagon of quick commerce? Because now that everybody was waking up, you were already digitizing grocery store.
Yeah.
So what didn't make you go there and look at freshness?
So we definitely would never open dark stores. We've been very clear. We will never do anything to compete with local. Because I started this business to make a difference. If I sold out, then what am I doing? Then I would rather not be building this.
No, dark store from freshness point of view, I absolutely agree with you. But because since you were digitizing grocery store, you didn't think of getting, because then other grocery is still okay to be in a dark store.
Yeah.
So you didn't think that was a faster business move for you?
Yeah, but faster is always not better.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like I said, we have a clear mission that we want to empower local retailers. So even if we're not in the grocery category, there are grocery stores in this country. And listen, someone else is solving that problem. And,
Okay.
You know,
so you were clear that you didn't want to get into
No, it's
the
like a mission statement in our company. We will never do anything to compete with local retail because that's why we're building this. And not only is that something we believe in, it is a huge business opportunity. Today, even with all the quick commerce platforms in a city like Mumbai, more than 90% of grocery shopping, even packaged, happens through local stores.
Yes.
If quick commerce was going to wipe out local stores, there would be no local stores anymore, right?
No, absolutely.
Like,
I think they're also enabling each other, right?
And they complement each other.
Complementing, yes.
Like even in a city like Bangalore, which is like our tech capital, every street has a local store selling packaged products. So someone is shopping there. And an insight that I've come to from building LoveLocal is I actually think it's the women of India keeping local retail alive. And I'll give you my data-driven thought on this or insight on this. 80% of LoveLocal power users are women.
But that's also by the choice of category because it's...
No, because women plan. So one is women care about freshness and quality and cooking. So you're absolutely
that
right.
I am.
By choice of category, 100%.
Yeah.
But the other thing is like, very few women, honestly, are sitting there like 10 minutes before they need to make a meal buying what they need to buy.
Yeah, no.
Right? Exactly. Right? You probably have planned this entire week already, right? You did your big shopping. You probably have the stuff for the month in the house already.
Yes.
So when have you really been in your house when it comes to any kind of food where you're like, oh my God, I need it in 10 minutes? And I can tell,
Yeah, no, but I'll tell you, Akanksha, that's the person I am because I believe in my weekly planning and then I have a cook and a me so that I am not disturbed at office. But you'll be surprised. So I have this team member, the other day we were just discussing that. I was just saying that who needs an iPhone in 10 minutes? Like it's 1.5 lakh, it's not funny. So he was just talking during Diwali. And I said, who wants to do it? Like you said, why can't I plan? So I had this young team member, one of the Gen Zs. And she said, Darshana, I decided I wanted to have Maggie. I put a saucepan and then I realized that there's no Maggie in the house. And so but there is this generation. They're saying, okay, so I wanted to have Maggie. There's this instant gratification, instant. And so I called Maggie and thanks to quick commerce because it came in 10 minutes. But so it happens because it's not
is she married?
No, she's single.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what I'm saying, this old Gen Z single.
But these users will graduate and grow into our user. So as soon
I would
as
like them to.
As soon as people get married or are in a joint family setting where either they have to prepare food for more elderly parents or they have kids, whether it's men or women, they then start to pay attention to meals. So you're absolutely right. It's actually the bachelors and the bachelorettes that are some of the biggest users of quick commerce platforms.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, even when I was a college student, I was eating crap. Like I was not planning my meals.
Absolutely.
You live meal to meal.
Yeah.
You don't have a meal schedule, right? Like you're studying, whatever you're studying at 3 a.m., whatever you're doing on the weekend. Like it's not as structured.
True.
But as soon as you start growing up a bit and you're in a family setting, and definitely when you have kids,
yes,
right?
That you were right.
You start planning.
Yeah, you have a point.
And so I actually think even millennials when they were 22 would not have been our user. And neither will a Gen Z. But when they're maybe in their late 20s or their early 30s, they will start being our user. And that's where I go back to like why I believe the women of India are keeping local retail alive is because the women of India, I think, pay attention to far more than speed. They pay attention to quality. They pay attention to assortment. So local stores, even in the grocery category, have a far larger assortment. Your average kirana in India probably has like up to 30,000 products, which is not what a quick commerce platform has, because there's so many things in India that are regional, that are cultural, right?
Yes.
Like, so, and there may be the odd thing once in a while that you forget, but the women of India, whether we like it or not, are running the houses of India.
Absolutely. The Darshana Shah Show is not just another podcast, but something which is my personal purpose to create the next generation leadership, to teach them how to succeed or pivot when the time is right. And if you're enjoying this, do remember to show me love and subscribe. So I want to now talk about Akanksha as a leader, as a woman leader. And so again, coming to COVID, right? Did you ever feel that I need to close because I'm going to burn money? And when you're completely in the unknown, you were planning something, the world is put in the unknown.
Yeah.
So what was happening as a leader, as a mindset? Did you panic? Did you want to quit and go back to the safety?
No. No, honestly, I think one is that I generally have been pretty good at capital management. So I think I kind of strapped in. Two is I could see that we were growing so fast. So I kind of was conservative on the cash side, but observing the growth side. And no, I think at that time, and I think this was true of all founders, I think we thought about so much more than business. My biggest concern was suddenly I was responsible for, very quickly that 23 people became like 100 people and their families. And I was like, it was no longer necessarily, to be honest, about the business itself during that period. But I was like, there are like 100 families here that if I'm not able to make payroll, I'm responsible for that. And we didn't know it. By 2022, we were also burnt out, right? Like we had the second wave, which was so brutal.
Very brutal.
We, in fact, lost 2 team members and nearly a third team member. So I think founders at that point were leaned on so much more by their teams than in just a business setting. We were organizing vaccine camps. We were the go-to if someone was in the hospital. We were really like, for better or worse, the sudden caretaker of our teams, which is fine, but it was just something that I don't think any of us were prepared for. None of us were trained for.
True.
And I think that's where everyone's mindset shifted, not mine alone. I think every founder was in that mindset. So I think there was no question of quitting, so to speak. It's like, okay, we just got to get through this now. I had 100 people. There are businesses that had far more people, thousands and thousands of people that were just counting on them. That, must have been incredibly challenging for that leadership.
So, and when you are now, leading your team, what is the kind of leadership style and what's the culture in your company? Because you are so mission, and I like that you're saying you are never going to compete against Kirana. So there is a clear purpose and mission out there. So is that when you're hiring, you look at people who are aligned to that? And so how do you go about?
I think most of all, it's like you have to buy into the mission. If you're not mission driven, then I think you will end up being unhappy at some point. So I think that's definitely something we screen for. And then I think I would say it's a combination of, I believe in teams, not families. I think this is very true in India. Like companies will often talk about their teams as families.
Yeah.
But I actually think that as a business, you're expected to be a high performance team. So if you take the example of a cricket team, if you're a family, you'll let the bad cricketers stay on the pitch, right?
So very interesting insight.
You cannot have low performers stay on the field.
Yes.
And business is a team. And that doesn't
so much
mean
from your sports side. I really like it. No, it's really interesting. It's a very different take.
And also people think that by saying that, it doesn't mean that you have high empathy or strong bonding. In fact, sports teams probably have some of the strongest bonding you'll find.
True.
But they're able to be very honest about performance, right? And a lot of times athletes in team situations, if they're not performing, they will remove themselves and be like, hey, I'm holding the team back. I'm not able to get the results. And the job of the captain is to make those hard decisions and say, hey, you're a great person. This isn't personal, but I got to bench you. You cannot be playing right now because you are not delivering what you are supposed to deliver in your role in the team right now.
Right.
So I would say that if you want to think about the role or like the culture of LoveLocal, you can probably liken it as much as I can to a sports team. Like we are high performance, we are high empathy, but we're there to perform and we're there to deliver results. And then I believe in like very brutal honesty about performance. Just like a sports score, the score is the score. Let's not lie about it, right? Like, let's be very honest if we're winning or losing. And then let's analyze why we're winning or losing. Because I think one thing that's great about sports is you lose a lot and there's no shame around losing.
No shame, yeah.
In fact, even if you look at like Roger Federer, he will tell you that he only won 56% of the points he ever played. He was one of the greatest athletes of all time, right?
Yes.
But it's that 56% makes you one of the greatest because you're able to get through the 44% of points you lost.
Yes. And you're also analyzing quickly, so you fail fast, learn fast, and move fast.
And I really wish that we had more of like an overall culture of sports in society that, hey, it's okay to fail. Like, you're supposed to fail. But then you're supposed to get up, figure out why you failed, and then just try harder or try better or try different. But try again.
Try again.
And there's no shame in it. It's like, be there playing the game, right? Like, and don't opt out because you're scared of losing. What a silly reason not to play. I think there's so many things that are incredible about the sports framework and that are part of sports culture that should be applied to school, that should be applied to jobs, that should be applied to even relationships, like anything that we do.
Yeah, interesting. So that's the culture that you really have, and that's the mindset of a captain that you carry.
Yeah.
So then, so now what about scale? Are you guys looking at scaling fast, scaling slow? Meaning, where is?
I would say it's probably at this point, because we made this change about 18, 24 months ago into freshness. There was first a process of then building the supply side. So we have about 1,000 stores across Bombay now.
Oh, so this is only in Bombay?
Right now we're only in Mumbai, in fruits and vegetables and meats and fish. And now we're starting to scale up the customer side. Okay. So we're growing quite quickly. I think it's a combination of growing healthy and also growing fast. And we're trying to strike the right balance there.
So now your whole hyperlocal model with the
original vision
vision is coming. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Now I'm going to talk about your experience as a woman entrepreneur, founder. Because see, most of the times when I talk to a lot of founders, they're either two people, so that there is one leaning on the other. Yeah. Equally, they have fights. Now you are solo.
Yeah.
So I know you played a solo. You played a double squash, also not a solo.
So yeah, it's a solo sport.
But now, just so running a founder as a founder, solo founder, how does it feel?
Honestly, I think it's just part of my personality, because you're right. I think that's a great point that you made, which is something I've realized about myself. I generally have always tended towards playing solo sports. So like, I was on the Hong Kong team. So in team environments where then you're still solo.
You're still solo, yes.
I play tennis now. I much prefer singles than doubles. And I think there's a lot of pressure when you're the only person on the court. But there's also a lot of control.
Yeah.
Right? Ultimately, I think if you're ready and not scared to be accountable for the decision, then there's also a lot of authority and ownership you can have over that decision, and it gives you some freedom. So I think there's goods and bads. There's definitely days that I wish that I had someone to lean on and talk to, and it can be lonely. But I would say like it also makes decision making a lot cleaner and avoids like some of the conflicts and complexities that come in when you have multiple people trying to sail the same ship.
And women on a cap table, and you were raising fund. I mean, yes, you said you have been one of them, or the only who's got this 18-20 million, at the cap table, and but it's sad, and I agree with you. It is sad because
it's not a big number.
It's not a big number, and why? I mean, why are we again called out? Yeah. And I speak to women founders, and I hear a repeat of the same story. A lot of rejections, more questions asked. It's not about your product or your business idea, but because you are a woman that comes in the play. So what is your take there? Because you also went through that, right?
I mean, unfortunately, I wish I had better news. I don't think it's getting better. In fact, stats will show it's getting worse. There's less funding going to female-founded companies. So I think there's a lot of marketing around women. especially around Women's Day, suddenly we're very important. March
Rubbish.
8th, we all get very important, and then we disappear into the night. If you look at statistics, actually less money is going to female founder companies. It used to be around 2% or 2.4%. That's decreased globally. In India, it's less than 1%.
It's less than.
And the great irony is, and anyone is welcome to search this online, female founded companies deliver 2.5x more shareholder value.
More value. And still they are not given.
And to your earlier question about capital, one of the reasons women do return more to shareholders and tend to build more successful, profitable companies is because women also manage money better. They tend to be
it comes from our conditioning that we are CFOs of the house.
Yeah, exactly. And we tend to count every rupee that we spend. We're always looking for efficiencies. And so everything you see on a household level, in terms of finance management, you see play out in a company. And that's what's the most frustrating thing, that if the data is telling you that women founders will deliver more value to you, then why won't you invest in them?
So what's your insight? Like, what have you, since you experienced it?
Yeah.
And why is it then? Why this kind of
patriarchy? There's no rocket science around it as much as we have great marketing. Like, it is very rare I even meet a female investor. Forget the founder side. How many female investors are there?
Yeah, that's one of the problem I want to solve. I met someone and I said, can we, it's a male, of course, but can we start a fund for female entrepreneurs? So there you go, because there is an opportunity, there is a space, and nobody's really doing it. And it's really sad. So you don't think you want to change that, or do you want to become a...
Maybe one day, but I look at the investor side, and even today, like, maybe funds will have like a token, and they'll do the token, like, and there's not even all of them do it. They'll do the token female partner. They'll have one female partner, right? And there have been a few women that have tried to build funds themselves, but they've to date not been able to, or I haven't seen one that's been a very large fund. And I wonder if they're facing the same problem when they try to raise from LPs, because ultimately to build a fund, you have to raise capital on the other side.
Yes, you have to raise capital. True.
And so what you'll see funds that invest in female founded companies by women that are earlier stage, like seed stage or Series A, but you will not see them when it comes to larger rounds.
So you see this globally? Akanksha?
Yeah, 100%. India's a little worse, but pretty much the same trend globally.
The same everywhere.
Yeah. I will say, like, my Series B, for example, I had only pretty much international investors. So as I started to have to raise more capital, I had to go overseas. And I will tell you one place that's the exception, and that's China.
Oh, okay.
So China actually has the highest percentage of female CEOs, female fund heads. And actually China is doing very well when it comes to women's leadership. And there's a lot of data around it. I also wonder whether it is rooted in their history of communism, because Mao Zedong had said, like, women hold up half the sky. And so I think communism really brought women to the forefront in terms of equality. And I think as China's grown, maybe that's really served them very well.
Wow, interesting. See, most of the Asian countries and even in the Southeast Asia, women are hardworking, but not from where you're bringing it. That they are out there as CEOs or really as a women entrepreneur or founders or investors. I didn't think of China like that. This is news to me. I mean, it's a learning for me also. Very nice. So interesting. In the communism world and in a democracy, we are struggling. But that's one problem I do feel. I keep hearing this, that otherwise, how do you give women the empowerment to grow?
Yeah.
Ultimately, they're struggling, and then you'll always look for a male founder.
I've been told to look for a male founder.
Oh, you were told. That's even more condescending.
Oh, no. There's like, I don't think, like, women founders in India are not talking about it. And I'm a little bit of a bull in a china shop, so I kind of just say what I think or what happens. But yeah, like, let's be very blunt. I can say from personal experience and from the female founder community conversations, we are facing everything from sexual harassment to being told that we should find male founders, which I've been told to my face, actually not just once, to asking us very inappropriate questions about, if we're married, what are our plans to have children, I've had a friend who's a founder, built a company with her husband. They went in to pitch one of the most well-known funds in India, which is also a global fund. And she was asked who's the alpha and who's the beta, and was asked about their family planning goals. Lots of stuff. Women are hiding pregnancies.
Really? Oh
Yeah, because you don't want to show that you're having a child.
That's like
you won't get
as
money.
if you're acting in Bollywood and doing it so.
Yeah.
So it's deep, and it's really, I want to swear.
But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like I would love to buy into the March 8th hype. But I think it's time we start telling it as it is, because I think there's a bit of, I think women we try and be really optimistic, and we take the little bit that we're given and, hurrah, hurrah.
Yeah.
But I think we're getting to a point that I just want us to start having honest conversations and start holding people accountable.
Absolutely.
So this is the reality. It has not changed. Whatever hype there may be, how many of your posters they may put one of our faces on. And I think we have to do better. That's it. That's the bottom line.
I'm taking from what you're saying, because I didn't realize it's so dark. And yeah, you're right. People don't talk so openly, because I think the women founders themselves are also worried that
of getting blacklisted, for sure.
Yes. So if
hopefully I don't get blacklisted.
No, but you are very clear, which I absolutely genuinely appreciate. So, but I also think that some of these women are also to be blamed, who are having the money and not making the difference. I think they lack the purpose the way you are. But you're saying that yes, if you have the purpose, go call out. Call out the black sheep. They are the women who are on the cap table. If a few of them are also not doing it, that means.
But I want to stop shifting. We have a very bad habit of just keep expecting women to do more. How about we fine? I can understand. I don't at all hold it against women who are not comfortable speaking. I haven't been so comfortable now. Obviously, I've raised more capital. I have more experience. I have more confidence. But I can completely understand why a seed stage founder who's just out there building her networks now, has not built her reputation, there's a lot of fear. Yeah. There's a lot of fear of being blacklisted. Let's be very, very honest about the dynamics. You'll start to see founders that are a little bit more seasoned, a little bit further along the value chain. Maybe we have more internal confidence. We definitely have more champions and stronger networks around us that I feel more comfortable speaking out. The things that I'm talking about, I didn't speak about them when I was in my seed round or my Series A round. And some of these things happen, to be honest, when you're probably more unknown, because you're also a little bit being preyed upon more when you're alone, because you don't have those networks.
Correct.
Right? Now I think it would be harder to try that nonsense with me. So I think there are a lot of dynamics that are happening here.
Sure. No, but I'm glad you called it out, because at some point this has to change, and I think women can stand up and make that change, like many other things that we have done. So yeah, we have this fun rapid fire thing. So I'm going to go straight on that. So one thing about Hong Kong you miss that Mumbai has, does not have?
East Asian food. The food. Great sushi, amazing Korean food, dim sum, the food.
Your go-to kirana store order when you don't feel like, if you have to go and order or buy?
I mean, I eat a lot of fruits, lots of blueberries. I would say I eat blueberries probably twice a day. So blueberries.
Blueberries, that's your go-to fruit.
Yeah.
Squash or business, which one broke your ego more?
Oh, wow. Probably business. I hate squash. I didn't have an ego about it at all. And I think in sports, there's a little bit of input-output. In business, there's so many things that are just fully not in your control.
Not in your control.
So it can really crush you sometimes, even if you did everything right.
A piece of advice you keep getting that you completely now ignore?
Smile more. And you need to moderate how you, the tone of your voice, the volume of your voice, or I've been told if I'm too, if I speak this way, that I'm too aggressive. So, now I don't care.
my God, this is even getting worse. I can't imagine. I wouldn't imagine somebody at work and corporate talking to me like this. So this is even very
I've been told this
regressive.
by investors.
Very regressive. I mean, you're not going there for acting. So what is this mind your, and what is this nonsense mind your tone?
Be a little bit more smiley and you'll be more effective if you're smiley. Sometimes you're too strong and it comes across negatively. So I don't listen to that anymore.
I'm glad. I'm absolutely glad. One word investors have used to describe you that you liked.
Probably like very tenacious, like perseverant. Yeah, just dogged, doesn't quit.
Why not? Nice. Something you believed at 25, but now you think it's nonsense. It was more naive at that time.
Interesting. I think I believed in this very fair world that everybody wins on hard work. I think there's a lot of people winning for a lot of reasons unrelated to hard work. So I think it has to do with privilege. I think it has to do with systems. I think it has to do with contacts. I think it has to do with self-promotion. So yeah, I think I was, grown up in a very army disciplined background where it was like hard work and discipline is what makes you win. I don't think the world works that way.
You are from the army background.
Yeah. My dad's side, my mom's side is army. My dad's side is Navy.
Wow.
So a lot of discipline there.
A lot of discipline. I think the headline is discipline. Okay. And if LoveLocal didn't exist and you had to start something tomorrow, would it be in the same space? You would do something different?
I would definitely do something that is focused on impact. I continue to be very passionate about this mission, but if someone asked me like, hey, it has to be something different, I really believe in climate. I think that's definitely an issue for the day that is getting not enough attention. Another thing I actually think is really exciting and interesting is I think there's been a resurrection of the belief in natural just in general. So even Ayurvedic and TCM, or in China, it's called traditional Chinese medicine, like basically Asian health. And earlier, because I think it wasn't spoken about in modern science terms, it was kind of treated like it doesn't work.
Yes.
But I actually think there's a lot of science behind maybe traditional medicine.
Yes.
And I think if I was to do something like had to be different from this, I would feel very excited about bringing that back, not just in India, but bringing that back to the world, because they keep stealing our stuff and rebranding it. Like turmeric latte and all this stuff is all our stuff. Yeah. So I would love for Indian companies to own our tradition and then build great businesses around our traditions. Like even this Prada Kolhapuri chappal.
Yeah.
Somehow other people are productizing our culture.
Yes.
I would love to do something where we take ownership of it and we benefit from it and we get to celebrate it. And I do think like Ayurvedic and traditional medicine is a really interesting category for folks to explore. And Western world is always very into these things.
Yeah, and they're open. There is a lot of consumption. See, that's one thing India does not do well. We have not created enough global brands.
Yeah.
Whilst global, like you said, Prada came and saw Kolhapuri, but we haven't really, whilst having created everything. So that's always been, whether it's a yoga, whether it's a Kolhapuri, all of that.
Like you won't believe it. I was in Hong Kong a couple of weeks ago and I went into a local supermarket, which was a French supermarket. And I was just looking at the shelves and they were selling ghee.
Oh, really? Wow.
For 120 Hong Kong dollars, which is like maybe $13 US for like a tiny jar of ghee. It was not by an Indian brand. It was some Western brand that had picked up on the trend and health benefits of ghee. So like our products are being sold out overseas, but we are not selling them. And they're being sold without all the knowledge behind them either.
Right.
They're being sold as trends.
Oh.
So I would love for us to actually own our culture again, like the best things about it, and kind of bring them back for ourselves because these habits are very healthy.
Absolutely.
And then also, if we're going to sell them overseas, like they should be sold by us.
It should be sold by us. So true. I absolutely agree. I hope when people listen to this, some founders wake up and do that. Whilst I know founders have started, but not to the global level, that you are right. So there is a huge opportunity. So on that note, thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.